Test 3. This is the IELTS listening test. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Now turn to part 1. Part 1. You will hear a woman calling about repairing her broken washing machine. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Good morning. This is the customer service department of Kingswell Washing Machine. Roger speaking. How may I help you?
Good morning. I'm calling about the washing machine I bought from the mall several months ago. There's something wrong with it at the moment, so what do I have to do?
OK. First, I need to get a few details about this. Could you give me your name, please?
Yes, it's Judy Smith.
OK. I need one more thing. There's a reference number. It should be in the top right-hand corner of the warranty card we gave you.
Let me have a look. Oh, here it is. It's CWX 576884.
Thanks. Well, I need to make sure if your washing machine is still within the warranty period. So when did you buy it?
Oh, sure. I remember I bought it last summer. So it was about 9 months ago. And the card here says this washing machine has a 2-year warranty. So it's definitely within the period.
Of course it is, madam. All right, then I need your address.
My old address or my current one?
Your current one, as we will send in someone to fix the washing machine for you.
It's 120 Middle Street, Oxford.
And the postcode?
It's GO194KE. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now, listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Now, I need to know the exact problem of the washing machine. Could you describe it in detail?
Actually, the washing machine did work very well until last weekend. I put some clothes into it, and it worked normally at first. Then I just got down to doing some gardening. But after about 30 minutes, when I came back to the house, I found it was leaking. The water had soaked the entire floor.
I'm sorry to hear that, madam. So, did you do anything to make the leaking stop?
At that moment, the washing machine was totally out of control, and the alarm on it also started to sound. I thought there was not much point in pressing any button on the machine, so I just switched off the machine straight away. Then it stopped leaking at once, thank goodness.
Well, I think that was the only thing you could do.
Oh, then I found my floor was nearly a disaster. As it is made of wood rather than marble, it could not be soaked in water for a long time. So what I did in the next 2 hours was wiping up the water on the floor.
Right.
Later, I tried the washing machine once more, but the problem still existed.
Well, I've taken down all the related information. Later, we'll send a client engineer to your house to fix it.
OK, could you arrange the repair work as soon as possible, as I'm too busy at work to do the laundry by hand? How about this Saturday?
I have to check the schedule of the repairman. Oh, sorry, madam. Saturday has been occupied. The earliest day we can arrange for you is next Tuesday. Is that OK with you?
Fine. I can take a leave from work that day. Anyway, thanks. Oh, my house is easy to find. It's near the Central Market, just across from the post office.
All right. And the last thing, could you tell me your phone number, please?
Sure. It's 3864 7757.
OK, I've got it. The repairman will contact you before he comes.
OK, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye. That is the end of Part 1. You now have 1 minute to
Part
check
2.
your answers to Part 1.
You will hear a traffic police officer talking to a group of listeners about driving licence application and traffic conditions in the UK. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15. Hello, I'm Edward, and I'm here to tell you about road conditions in various areas of the UK. I am also going to tell you about driver's licenses in the UK. If you have never had a driver's licence, or you have one from another country and you want to get a UK licence, you must be a UK resident. You will need to show a medical report when your UK licence needs to be renewed. If you are trying to translate your original foreign driving licence to apply for a UK licence, which is a must if you want to be able to drive here, you will need to visit an official agency. These are scattered throughout the London area and are well equipped to assist you with any questions you might have, and any services they offer are included in your licence fee. If you already have a translated licence but need some personal information updating, you do not need to pay for the update. They'll do it for free. When you are getting a new driving licence, you may need to have a new photo taken, as some photos are rejected. It's actually okay if your photo is too small, since we can get it enlarged with our printer. The majority of rejected photos are the ones that were taken with a cream backdrop instead of a monotone grey background. We've now found that photos with the latter allow us to identify the licence holder much more easily. If you were wearing glasses on the previous photo, you don't need to worry about it, since it is still allowed. If you are not sure whether your previous licence is still valid, then the licence checking service is for you. The procedures are quite clear and you just have to follow them. Ideally, I would like to see the process going faster, since it can take hours to finish. From my standpoint, it will help if all the applicants bring the necessary identification with them. Then all they have to do is just fill in the forms accordingly, step by step. I'm often asked whether I have a personal recommendation about the fastest or cheapest place to get all this done. But I think it really depends on where you are. They can all get busy at some point, and when it is quiet at one branch, it may be busy in another. So take your pick. All I would say is that there is absolutely no difference in price. It's a standard fee. The only advice I would give is that the quickest way to complete an application is to fill out the form on the internet and then bring a print copy with you to the agency location of your choice. Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 16 to 20. Next, people frequently ask me what I think of the road conditions in some of our cities. London is obviously the biggest and busiest, and there are lots of parking restrictions, one-way systems, and so on. But on the whole, I find the traffic signs are very clear. In Edinburgh, most people use digital maps to get to know local traffic and road conditions, which can be estimated through different traffic flow lines. It is a city of lights, traffic lights, but they're extremely efficient as they're timed perfectly to get the traffic flowing smoothly. That's important because pedestrian areas and crossings are always packed with people on foot, which needs strong regulation. The city of Cardiff has tackled traffic flow in a different way. It recently completed a road expansion scheme, and the extra lanes of the dual carriageway are easing congestion. It's a similar story in Manchester. Instead of going through the town centre, most vehicles choose ring roads so as to avoid the downtown congestion. It can still happen though, so there's a possibility that the city will introduce checkpoints where the police can intervene to direct traffic at peak periods. And finally, they say all roads lead to Rome, and you could say that about Oxford. I like the many options for getting in and out of the city because drivers can always find alternative routes. The other cities in the UK are... That is the end of Part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 2.
Part 3. You will hear two students called Mona and Tom discussing the essay for their management course. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26. Hello, Tom. Sorry I'm late.
Hi, Mona. No problem. I heard you finished the essay for the management course. Which company did you focus on?
It was finished last week. I chose the hotel where I interned last summer and mainly concentrated on my work experience there.
Could you give me some details? I'm interested.
Well, during my 3-month internship, I observed every part of the hotel carefully each day and also talked with some of my colleagues. I found some problems in different parts of the hotel and made a conclusion in the essay. Let me start from the reception desk. I noticed the staff there kept doing the same thing every day, like answering the phone, helping guests with check-in and check-out, etc. There was nothing special for them.
That must be very boring.
Yeah, I think so. And in the restaurant, the employees told me that they must obey the rules exactly. For example, if they don't wear uniforms during working hours, 20% of their daily wages will be deducted. And then about the coffee bar. During peak hours, I was asked to help in the coffee bar several times, as a shortage of hands always made many customers wait long for ordering, eating or paying the bills. Their own staff could not control customer flow.
Oh, that seems a little messy.
Yes, definitely. And the place where I worked was a shop selling towels and pyjamas, as well as souvenirs. Every day I had to be there from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. My duty was to set up the window display and serve the customers. At first it seemed interesting, but later I found this work was a bit tough. Every night when I got off work, I was nearly exhausted. What I wanted was just a good rest and sleep.
Doesn't sound like an easy job.
It definitely wasn't. Then there was the personnel office. I went there on the first day when I arrived at the hotel. As I was not familiar with everything, I asked the staff several questions, but the employee of the personnel office seemed a bit annoyed and started complaining, which gave me a very bad impression. Lastly, as regards cleaning, it wasn't too bad compared with other parts of the hotel, except the vacuum cleaners, which were probably bought such a long time ago that the sound seemed too loud when they were working. But fortunately, the hotel hasn't received any complaint from the customers so far. Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now, listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
I think you've benefited a lot from the internship.
Yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, I just wanted to complete the essay for the course. But in the end, I found it has given me some practical examples which are helpful to what I intend to do after graduation. As you know, I've always wanted to do something related to hotel management. Due to the time limitation, I still haven't got a clear idea of some specific work positions.
Well, I heard you're going to give us a presentation of your essay next time in class?
Yes, actually, I'm not so good at giving a presentation, but the tutor says that's just what he wants me to do, to know what is important when doing a presentation, like how to attract the audience, make eye contact and make gestures, etc., and other students can learn from my presentation.
I'm looking forward to it. You know, now I'm only in the second year of the course, and I have to write an essay next semester. But I have no idea about where I can do an internship. There are several hotels which I'm interested in. Do you think I should call their managers?
Well, I suggest you'd better not, because you're more likely to be rejected by them. There is a career office on campus that has got a list of companies offering internship opportunities to students. The office will help you contact where you want to go. You just have to prepare your personal information, like the CV. Oh, don't forget to provide a reference from the tutor.
Great, I've got it.
So, have you got any plans for your essay?
I've noticed that the hotel industry is developing at a high speed. People are more and more concerned about the quality of accommodation. What I'm struck by is numerous statistics showing the ever-increasing number of five-star hotels, so I intend to carry out extensive research on this aspect. I'm thinking about using video as a research method, but I haven't decided yet.
I think it's an interesting topic. Anyway, if you have any questions later, I will be happy to help.
Thanks a lot, Mona.
You're welcome. That is the end of part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 3. Part 4. You will hear part of a presentation about the early history of salt. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
In my presentation, I'm going to talk about salt. In modern times, when we talk about salt, people may associate it with high blood pressure or increased heart risk, and many health experts warn that we should use less salt in our meals and dishes. However, we should not ignore its importance in our cuisine, and even in early human history. Salt is one of the oldest, most ubiquitous food seasonings. The taste of salt is one of the basic human tastes. More importantly, salt plays an indispensable role in the health of human beings. For example, it regulates the body's acid-base balance. Because of its importance to survival, salt has often been considered a valuable commodity during human history. This can be tracked all the way back to ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, and ancient Rome, when salt was highly valued and used as a method of trade and currency. In ancient Rome, the busiest road leading to the city was the Via Salaria, which means the salt route in English. A soldier's pay, which partly consisted of salt, was known as salarium argentum in Latin, from which we derived the English word salary. A soldier's salary was cut if he was not worth his salt, an expression still used today. In fact, salt was not only the first condiment discovered, but also the first preservative. We know today that food goes bad because microorganisms in the food multiply in abundance, and a high salt environment is not conducive to microbial reproduction. Extremely high concentrations of salt can even kill microorganisms in the food. The ancients certainly didn't know this, but they did know that salted food can be preserved for a long time. The use of salt as a preservative can be traced to ancient Sweden. At first, hunting was the principal means of livelihood. In this case, meat supplies were unlikely to be frequent. What's more, fewer animals were available for hunting. In order to ensure the supply of meat, many families in Sweden began to raise animals in the surrounding forests during the summer, when the weather was suitable for animals to survive. These animals were fed every day until about 3 to 4 months later. That's in October, they were ready to be butchered for meat, and that was the only month when ancient Swedish people had fresh meat on their table. Then, with the continuous increase in productivity, people finally had some meat left. However, how to store the meat had become a headache, until someone invented a whole new way to preserve food: salting. People tried to keep meat from going bad by adding some salt to it, and it could be preserved for several months and even years. There was evidence that salt was widely used to preserve meat. Historical documents in 1573 recorded the Swedish king's everyday meals, mentioning that 175 pounds of meat was consumed each year, but over 150 pounds was salty. From this, we can clearly see the importance of salt in Sweden at that time. In addition, the documents also noted the annual sales of beer in Sweden soared during that period, and this must be related to high levels of salt in their food. Now, let's turn to the sources of salt. Where is salt from? Well, salt is common in nature. It has long been found that salt can be extracted from seawater, mineral deposits, saline lakes, brine, spring, etc., among which the two most important ones are oceans and basins. On the floor of the latter often lie deserts, where traces of salt can be found, such as the Sahara. Furthermore, the quality of different salt types varies a lot. For example, salt from seawater is always mixed with impurities, so after the salt is dried, the sediments and other chemicals need to be purified before eating. However, this is not the case with salt from spring water. We can hardly find any impurities, and the salt level is much more concentrated. Then, how did people distribute salt around the world? Of course, in modern times, we have various ways of transporting goods, but in ancient times, it was not the case. Take ancient Sweden, we mentioned before, as an example. Because of the heavy use of salt in the diet, Sweden could not feed itself and had to import large amounts of salt from other countries. In order to make sure they could buy enough salt from abroad, the Swedish had to attach great importance to shipping and keep it undamaged, as it was the most crucial way at that time. While in other ancient countries, in order to distribute salt to other places, groups of men were employed. They put bags of salt on their shoulders or backs and moved them to the surrounding regions, and gradually these people were considered as a mode of transport in early times. Later, with the improvement of traffic conditions, salt trade between different regions was boosted, and long-distance food trade was also promoted, making communication between different cultures more frequent and...
That is the end of part 4. You now have 1 minute to check